The cruise.
We're in.
This is an episode that we've been kicking around, kind of breaking into um, sort of different domains, if you will. Just because the point of the podcast, obviously, is to just discuss art, where we see art, right, and how things have been done in artful ways. And you and I talked off air about how the Bill Belichick's, the fighting Bills, if you will. Um, yeah, they starting, what's his name again? Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, yeah.
Having him go onto the field is a true display of artfulness that we haven't seen the likes of in quite some time.
Yeah, I described the Patriots 2023 season as being some form of abstract art. And I would stand by that. Like having Bailey Zappi start games or that abysmal 9-10 loss they did in Germany this season. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Or it wasn't 9-10, it was 6-10. Sorry.
Where would you like to start with the NFL's artfulness this season?
Yeah, so
True artistry.
I just to add to kind of what you said there, like we're trying to get into different domains. Like we'll get into some history, not necessarily art history, but like the American presidents and how they wielded power, and like power as art is just like one of the abstract things we're going to do. But another is going to be talking about sports, and um by and large, American sports are more of a product than they are anything else, and the whole goal is to sell that product to its unwilling consumers, despite the fact that they're just addicted to this strange thing that they consider a professional sport. But the path along the way for both managers and coaches to create teams and game plans and seeing how they fall apart down the stretch is something that I can only describe as being artful. And I'm very entertained by it. Not in terms of actually watching every game, because that is extremely tedious and mostly you're just consuming advertising.
Ads. Yeah.
Because the games themselves, you can just find them on YouTube, uh, broken down into like roughly 20 minutes of the actual gameplay. And so you can see how the schemes work and how offenses and defenses actually play out versus each other in a way that's a lot more like chess analysis than it is watching a sport play out. Because I mean, every so often there is just incredible athleticism put on display that highlights how some of these people are just phenomenal talents at being able to catch or throw a ball. But yeah, I
Yeah.
guess without further ado, we can start just logically with the AFC, kind of go division by division and talk about how teams did, why they did what they did, and what was maybe interesting about their season.
Yeah, full disclosure here, just to kind of, because I don't think we've done well, obviously we haven't done a football episode yet. We did, our only foray into sports was last year. We did a March Madness bracket, and don't you worry, we'll come back this year. I'm sure this year's will be much more dubious than last, because last year we actually did reasonably well. Just didn't get
Yeah,
really the main victor
what are
correct.
you gonna do? It did much better than
Yeah.
my personal private bracket.
It
So
did a lot better than by all accounts it should have, but we our discussion somehow led to that. But at any rate, what I wanted to say is that I am an Eagles fan. Yes, I know, bring on all the booze, all the batteries you would throw at Santa. And Nolan Nolan is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Um,
long time Buccaneers fan.
yeah, both of us have been these fans since childhood.
Well, when
Um,
we get to the Buccaneers, I'll explain why, because they're my favorite team specifically because I find what they do over time as being a form of art, like akin to a beautiful painting or mosaic.
Yeah, I cannot say the same for the Eagles.
No, being an
That's
Eagles
for
fan is
sure.
like self-flagellation. Like it's just hurting yourself, but also claiming to be better than others. It's a very, very different form of fandom, but certainly art. Like the throwing batteries at Santa thing is sums them up really well.
Yeah. Yes, it does. At any rate, I just wanted to kind of set that scene just because um that's kind of it's not where we're coming from, but those are the teams that we loosely root for. But at the same time, like I'm gonna catch myself rooting more for underdogs than um over dogs, up dogs.
Favorites, champions,
Sorry, I just had that espresso and I'm ready for cooking,
zippity doo
if you
dah.
will. Yeah.
Cooking, yeah, we could start with the Denver Broncos. They were one of the most fun teams to follow this season. Speaking of cooking, Chef Russ.
Cooking.
Cooking.
Cooking country, let's cook.
Let's cook. Yeah, that's what he would. It's what has been known to be said about him by the media landscape is that Chef Russ cooks, and that he would frequently cook up good games.
Not Danger Russ, but Adventure Russ. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
Lord.
Unfortunately, this season was the ride that never ends. A ride of pain and misery. Um, they started the season off horrifically, which was not a surprise to anyone because of how the team imploded last year due to Nathaniel Hackett just being a completely unprepared head coach. And so they hired a sort of modern NFL legend, Sean Payton, formerly of the New Orleans Saints. And he managed to turn the team around really well. In the middle of the year, they rattled off like, I think, winning 5 in a row, maybe, and like 6 of 7 at one point, but they just failed down the stretch, losing a brutal game to the Patriots, which ended up basically costing them the uh, a seat in the playoffs and a chance at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
Ultimately, the
the other thing about Sean Payton though is from the moment he took the reins as the leader of the Broncos, he decided to for some reason drive a wedge between himself, the team, and Russ Wilson. Um, in a lot of ways, and I'm not sure why, if he doesn't believe in him or what is going on there, but
well
he
to
definitely
continue
has
with
done that. Yeah.
to continue with that metaphor, I think Chef Russ is cooked. He
Mm.
just is not the talent he used to be. I don't think he's aged very well, and he doesn't seem to be able to play at that high level week in and week out. His accuracy has decreased. His speed has obviously decreased. His ability to read defenses has not gone well, and he has not meshed well with an offense or a coordinator um, since like Seattle in 2018. Many people blamed Pete Carroll for the failures he had his last 2 seasons in Seattle, but based on how they sort
That
of
was proven.
overperformed in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
proven to be a falsehood this year with Pete Carroll.
well, yeah, predominantly last
RIP,
year, but
RIP Pete.
yeah, we'll get the firing of him is. I didn't really understand that this season because, like, yeah, they loaded up on young talent, but it seemed like next year would be the year that that talent would all sort of coalesce into a place that they should have been in. They won games they shouldn't have won this year, most
Correct.
notably against the Eagles, but they
Yeah.
also lost games they shouldn't have lost. And I guess they just wanted to move on and get rebuilding with a young team and probably a younger coach.
I don't think we're gonna be able to run through like every single team's storylines, to be fair, to be clear.
Well, there are some we can just cross off for being like we can just get through them easily. Like the Panthers were a historically bad team, and there's nothing to say about them beyond the fact that their owner has meddled in the team's affairs for too long, basically since the
Dumping
Ron
beers on
Rivera.
people,
Yeah, yeah.
out of his like club suite.
Well, they were Jaguars fans, so they deserved it.
What a jackass.
But yeah, that's like there's nothing more to say about them. The Cardinals were basically just tanking. Like they played a lot of close games and were a gritty team, but
and then
overall,
and then beat the Eagles.
yeah, well, the Eagles, that's we like the Eagles season's easy to sum up. Like they
I think
were
they're hopefully gonna just be put out of their misery. Honestly, like,
they get to
that's
play the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are the worst team in the playoffs other than maybe the Eagles. So
also, yeah. To be clear, I mean, we're recording this on the 14th of January, so this is obviously before the Super Bowl. It's mid Super Wild Card weekend.
mhm.
The game between who is it? The Cowboys and Packers is about to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we can actually release this sooner than later. I
Oh,
mean,
I
we
fully plan on releasing this on Monday. Yeah,
Oh,
tomorrow.
cool. Well, then
Yeah.
maybe tomorrow, or well, probably not tomorrow because there's just more games tomorrow. But um, yeah, there are other like teams obviously that we don't need to talk about. We could skip over because they have not played yet and get the bye. Like
Right.
the Ravens and the 49ers played phenomenal seasons. They had some ups and downs, but predominantly just dominated every team that they played. And
Hmm.
so their story will be concluded with how they either go to the Super Bowl or flame out in the playoffs, which has been the problem
Because
for
both
both teams.
both of those teams have done that. Either
Hmm.
Lamar has gotten hurt and then they can't really do anything, or Shanahan hasn't been able to overcome injuries that his squad has received, so then he just can't cobble it together.
It's the same with the Ravens. They've been
Exactly.
crushed by injuries over the last few years, and then Lamar just turns midnight and he's back to a pumpkin.
Yep. Exactly.
Um,
So yeah, we knocked those off the board.
There are some other teams that I think we can just eliminate because there's not much to say. The Commanders, the Giants, the Titans, and the Raiders all have had, and the Chargers have all sort of had staff changes. They were all very bad this season, just mediocre teams that didn't have a strong identity.
Hmm.
Um, the Chargers are probably the most tragic because they have
Yeah.
so much talent on both sides of the ball. And largely that's an issue of the team not really having a big fan base because of what owner Dean Spanos has done, moving the team to Los Angeles, which just it was a nightmare scenario. Um, but yeah, so several of those teams are now without coaches. And so moving forward, their identity will have to be reshaped and they'll rebuild again. Um, there are some middle of the road teams like the Vikings and the Colts, perhaps the Saints that like showed promise but just couldn't really get there. Um, so they're like teams that kind of will look to be competitive next year that didn't have too much going on this season and not much was necessarily expected of them. The Vikings, I think, had all the pressure removed once Jefferson and Kirk Cousins were injured, because then it's like, all right, our best players are out, so the season's just over. And the fact that Dobby the astronaut was able to win a couple of games in the middle of the year was just
Jesus
a
Christ.
what?
Dobby the astronaut.
Yeah, Joshua Dobbs, a quarterback, a journeyman, if you will, who has moved from team to team with no success in the few years that he's actually been in the league, was like an astrophysicist major in college, and so many people keep calling him like an astronaut, but his name is Dobbs, and so I created the moniker, Dobby the astronaut.
Oh my God.
There are a lot of these references that are like 9 or 10 layers deep of just the meta of NFL discourse based on whatever media I'm consuming, which who knows what that is. But yeah, I think we can kind of skip over a lot of those teams. Most of the interesting teams are the teams that like they should have done well and really didn't, or teams that have like a really promising future.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a couple teams like the Bengals had the same problem. They should have been better, but they were missing pieces on defense that they traded off in the offseason. Burrow was injured all year and underperformed, so that just threw their season away. The Falcons are loaded on offense but have no quarterback, and they were being coached by a maniac who was just not good at managing games. So he's fired, and now their future's uncertain. I guess I touched on the Saints sort of underperforming. Like they're being led by quarterback Derek Carr, who's been not very consistent his whole year or his whole
His whole
career.
career, yeah.
And that problem just won't go away. He's just not an elite quarterback. He's not Joe Flacco.
No, not Joe Flacco, who threw 2 pick-six last night.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Browns. This is what the Browns deserve. They've they've managed to keep Groper Cleveland, who is not the same man he was when he was playing for the Texans, and so seeing him be injured and fail at the Browns is honestly kind of satisfying because he
I'm just
seems
gonna
like
grab some water. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
a very unlikable dude. So yeah, the Browns season tragically ended yesterday when Joe Flacco, their fourth string quarterback, a veteran man who really doesn't need to be in the league anymore, has been playing a lot of what I would call hero ball, which is where you just throw the ball down the field into a wide receiver who's in triple coverage, and then, through back-to-back interceptions, returned for long touchdowns. So they lost a good end to an overperforming season where they managed to do well without key pieces. Hopefully Nick Chubb is not injured forever, but I imagine that he is permanently hurt by what happened to him.
Yeah, sad, honestly. Big sad. That's a good segue into the Texans then.
Mm-hmm.
A team that has completely overperformed with a meteoric, not even rise, just like meteoric performance out of CJ Stroud this year, as well as what's that D lineman's name that they got from Alabama? Forget.
Not sure.
Anyway, yeah, they've really been putting on a performance here.
They were, I mean, the story is incredible. Like they were the worst team last season. They're on path to get the first overall pick in the draft, and instead of tanking,
Will
their coach
Anderson
at the
Jr.
time. Oh, okay.
He's a problem. He is an absolute problem. He's
Yeah,
so good.
I'm not that familiar. I would believe it though. So the Texans last year, end of the season in January, Lovie Smith, their coach, knows he's going to be fired. And so instead of tanking, he's like, you know what, boys, let's go out and win one and mess up our draft. And so they go out and win a game that they should have lost to get a better draft pick. The result of which was that they got the second pick in the draft rather than the first, which meant that instead of making the mistake of taking Bryce Young as the first pick, they got CJ Stroud, who turned out to be a generational talent and had the best rookie season ever for a quarterback. And so they go from just, a goat, not greatest of all time, but just like a goat of an animal, just an abysmally bad, goofy team, to a playoff team that just routed one of the best defenses in the league. So yeah, I would agree with you. It's a meteoric rise. It's exciting. Their coach is likable. Stroud has like really showed himself to be a great pocket passer who reads defenses very effectively. I don't think they're gonna go to the Super Bowl, but they are definitely a team to watch out for. More fun to watch than the Chiefs, for example.
Oh God, yeah.
If you like watching very methodical defenses and offenses with no wide receivers, the Chiefs are the team for you.
Yep. It's a good way of honestly summing up the Chiefs this year as well. Do you like watching a game that consists entirely of showing clips of like one sweet section with celebrities and then also kind of watching the game? There you go. Go watch the Chiefs. Look at Taylor Swift and her red lipstick.
Hey, having Taylor Swift do an arranged marriage with Travis Kelce was one of the smartest marketing decisions some NFL guy came up with in recent years. Just distracting everyone from the diminishing returns of this bloated product.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Where are we going now?
Well, the Chiefs put an end to the Dolphins season last night, which is very
Yeah.
disappointing because they flashed signs of being like the new type of offense throughout the season, but were kind of defined by their inability to beat both solid defenses or teams with winning records. And I mean, that's just going to be a problem. It seems like moving forward for them, they have severe need for some key defensive skill players. Their offense was just shut down against a real coach last night. So Mike McDaniels is going to have to work tirelessly to actually come up with a game plan that keeps the Dolphins as like one of the best teams in the league moving forward.
Yeah, I really hope he can figure it out because he's really fun to watch. Obviously, he has like a really funny personality and also like just is so nerdy. Like there are a few NFL coaches that are now like cropping up that are just like huge fucking nerds. And
Sean
they
McVay.
yeah, exactly. Sean McVay, McDaniels, and like by all accounts, just seeing them on the sideline, you're like, are you the is that the water boy? Who gave you a clipboard? Like you don't deserve that clipboard. I'm pretty sure who was it? McDaniels was the water boy like with Sean Payton um
Mm,
in New Orleans. I'm pretty sure he was like either what's that person called? They're not like they kind of
trainer.
no, not trainer. He wasn't the water boy. He like managed the like jerseys and stuff. Like he cleaned the locker rooms or
Quartermaster.
something. Yeah. Like he wasn't their servant, he wasn't their slave, but he was that basically. He had gauges as well at a certain point in time. Like if you look up young pictures of him, it's wild to see. At any rate, in that same division as the Dolphins as well, we've got the Bills, the Pats, and the Jets. The Bills have yet to play, so we won't talk about them, I guess.
The Bills are another one of those teams that's just boom or bust,
Yes, at all
based
points in time.
purely off of the offense of Josh Allen, who will throw a touchdown or an interception on like every drive.
Mm, yeah, the Pats are
It's
saying
worth
goodbye to Bill, or
well, it's
Bill is
worth
saying goodbye to them.
well before we move on, it's worth noting that Sean McDermott is an avid Taliban fan and
Oh
enthusiast
yeah,
of talking about terrorism as a way to motivate players.
yeah. I believe the quote that he mentioned to his players in the locker room was like about how they should have teamwork as good as the terrorists on 9/11 because they really like were good at orchestrating and coming together to accomplish a goal. This is we're not making this up. This is not a bit. This is something he actually said and has come out and like apologized for. Ridiculous, ridiculous quote. Like objectively what he said is true, but like dude, what are you doing, man? Like you how are you not self-aware enough to realize first of all, the Buffalo Bills which reside in the state of
In New
New York,
York,
you're going
they
to
play,
bring up the fact that the terrorists did a really like good job of teamwork.
they played
Like
a game this year on 9/11 against the Jets.
yeah, like what are you doing, dude? Like there's so many layers there of like this would be like before like traveling to like Germany for the like Munich game or like I don't even remember where it was if it was in Munich or not. It doesn't really matter. Maybe it was Frankfurt. That like someone brings up some aspect about Hitler like yeah, we really got to like come together as a unit and like you got to listen to me as Hitler here because he was really solid with dictating orders and people followed his direction. Like, what are you
Yeah,
saying
you
here,
know who was
man?
really organized? The SS.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell?
It should be noted that since those comments became public, the Bills have not lost.
They are undefeated. Yeah.
And they needed to win every single game to make the playoffs, which they did. So it's truly remarkable to know that motivating players with terrorism as a
I
metaphor does work.
I imagine McDermott just like visualizing Nick Sirianni's face and just being like, we got to come up with something aggressive to take this man down. There's so many people out there that hate Sirianni. Just seeing his face brings vitriol to their mouths.
Well, I can explain that. So part of it is that he like cries during the national anthem, which people think is both disingenuous and unmanly. And I think
He's a
that
super
points
emotional guy. He's a
that
very passionate individual.
exactly, and that points to something that NFL fans by and large cannot cope with, which is their own emotions, because many
Mm,
NFL fans are unfortunately deeply emotionally stunted men who refuse to acknowledge their feelings and instead drink light beer and watch football and go,
drink
ah,
light beer and watch ads that then
tell them to
week
drink more light
weeks
beer.
weeks later manifest in them purchasing some bullshit thing to justify their manliness. Yeah. Something or other. I guess this episode is literally gonna turn into our own like critique of the NFL and American sports on the whole. Cause
Well, it was
it
always
is
going to be that.
it is interesting how like I mean I love football. Like it's one of my favorite things to watch, obviously, but also just trying to like wade through the swamp that is like all the ads and also like all of the like bullshittery content and commentators and like all of that shit just to get to the meat of like I just want to watch the chess match that is these giant monsters just bashing into each other that are directed by like they're not grandmaster levels because some of the coaching decisions are grandmaster levels in a chess game, but then others is just completely fraudulent like play calls or tactical moves or strategies going into a game. And that's what's just so much fun about it is that it's this like grand marriage between these like huge monstrous men who can move so quickly and are just absolute freak athletes, and they're being directed by people who either are operating at a really high level or are completely fraudulent. Yeah, that's why I love it.
I Yeah, I mean that's why I watch the like 20-minute recaps on YouTube that just show the actual games with no commentary because that's the actual game, which is why I compared it to chess. Because all of the pageantry and like, waving it, saluting flags and never kneel at the flag, that would be heinous and all that stuff is just window dressing for what the product really is, which is, some sort of blood sport that we love because blood sports are fun, but, man catching ball real good is almost always as exciting a thing. Like seeing someone break away for a great run or just someone who catches the ball with two tip fingertips is, feats of great athleticism.
Yes, exactly. So who's up next?
Oh boy. But we can fly through the rest of these. Got the Jets, who were supposed to be really good because they loaded up with talent and they picked up Mr. Rogers in the offseason, and then 4 plays in, Rogers was out for the year. Even though every 2 weeks he would come on Pat McAfee's podcast and tell people that he had just eaten like some witch's spell like from a cauldron and that it would magically heal his torn Achilles. It didn't work. His like ayahuasca root eye drops did not give him the third eye and make
the
him able to
crystals
play again.
the crystals he inserted in his ass didn't help him for some
No.
reason. It's too bad.
No, so the Jets instead ended with a historically bad offense that just could not do anything with the ball. I think they're probably in the history book somewhere for like the most wins with the least amount of points scored and yards gained. Because Zach Wilson was like
Yes.
Mac Jones, just an abysmally bad quarterback that just could not work with that offense. The Nathaniel Hackett led offense, the man that literally blew up the Broncos, somehow has a
Mm-mm.
job.
Their defense is solid. Their defense
Yeah,
is really, really good,
it's the only
honestly.
reason Robert Saleh didn't get fired because he is very good at putting together defense, which by all accounts should be good next year too. And They're basically just a quarterback and one more good wide receiver away from being a top tier team. But since they think Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson are the solution, they're just never going to be good.
Probably not.
Yeah, the Patriots were terrible. We talked about them. The Stillers.
The Stillers are going to be an interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, all we have left is
Who do they
the
have starting? They've got Mason Rudolph.
Rudy.
Unfortunately, they also have, well, not unfortunately, but they also have Trace McSorley, who we unfortunately are not going to get a shot at seeing get NFL reps.
No, he's terrible.
I don't think he's terrible. He's got a lot of heart. Got a lot of heart.
Rudy. Like the Steelers are just every year their art, just like a team that makes no sense. They're always a good defense, but their offense is just 20 years behind what the rest of the league does, and so they have a really hard time scoring points. They just grind you down and hope that they can win by flukes, which leads to them getting blown out by bad teams and blown out by great teams, but then occasionally just playing really, really close games that they shouldn't be in and then winning because their defense works well. By all accounts, they should get massacred by the Bills tomorrow, but the Bills are like the Steelers, where their biggest enemy is themselves. The only other teams we have not talked about are some of the tragic teams or the teams at the top. So the Jaguars, the Packers, the Lions, the Cowboys, and the Rams. The Jaguars should have been good, and then because Doug Peterson is evidently a hack, they just failed down the stretch, losing 5 of 6. Trevor Lawrence apparently was injured. Yeah, not good. Should have been a lock to make the playoffs. It was like one of the worst collapses in the league history.
Yeah, he consistently has been making some like very questionable decisions down the stretch in every close game that he's been involved in.
That's because he goes by the analytics, not by reality.
Oh yeah, he's an analytics slave, that's for sure. He definitely just is beholden to that. Enthralled.
Speaking of the opposite of that, and speaking about heart, we have the Detroit Lions, who literally ignore all the analytics because meathead Dan Campbell has the biggest heart in the world and has just willed the worst franchise in American sports to just will themselves to be good.
My buddy Powers, he has a good take on this. He thinks that they should change their name and their mascot to be the Fightin' Dan Campbells. just a giant, like his face on a lion because he already looks like a lion, and then they're just the Dan Campbells, the DCs. It would be so funny. That dude is an absolute animal, and yes, he does not go by any analytics. He goes by pure willpower, caffeine, and manic energy.
I'm pretty sure in their last game, which they didn't need to play any starters in, their playoff spot was locked up. They started every single starter and went for it on every 4th down and blew out the Vikings.
And also injured how many of their starters in that game?
They did end up injuring LaPorta, their second best wide receiver. So
LaPorta?
Yeah. LaPorta Potty.
Oh.
Yeah, so we'll only learn how fraudulent they are after tonight when they play the Rams, because the Rams season went really well. Sean McVay basically just ground water from a stone and turned the team around. So it'll be exciting to see Matt Stafford's revenge game against the team that just took away half of his career.
This is a question. Is the Rams logo still the same? Like, do they still have the same Ram from when they were in St. Louis?
No, their logo is different.
Okay, but they stayed in the same division, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
They moved from St. Louis to LA and stayed in the same division, but that made no sense anyway because the NFC West having a team from St. Louis was nonsense.
Because I was looking at a breakdown of the different divisions, and they just still had the St. Louis Rams logo, and I was like, that does not look correct
No.
anymore.
No, it's like in LA, and the A has like the spiral coming off of it that's like a ram's horns.
That's what I thought. Who are we missing?
Packers and Cowboys, who also play each other tonight. So these two matchups are, classic NFL great storylines, which makes the whole thing seem rigged that somehow this is how it played out. But the Cowboys always fail in the playoffs. Since they had a run of Super Bowls back in the 80s and 90s, they've always failed in the playoffs. And the two teams that constantly are their kryptonite are the Packers and the 49ers. So, of course, to draw the Packers, who aren't a particularly good team, but they have a young quarterback named Jordan Love, who in the last month has come into his own as possibly being the replacement for the fellow behind us both, Aaron Rodgers. Whereas the Cowboys are just on paper the best team in the league.
And also they have McCarthy. So it's McCarthy against his old squad.
Yeah. So lots of revenge games happening tonight or today.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I haven't made this statement on the podcast, but my God, I hope Jerry Jones lives to be 150 because he will not see a championship if he does.
On paper, the Cowboys should win the playoffs or at least make it to the Super Bowl. But yeah,
there are some real believers in the Cowboys winning it all. They're playing good football right now, which is good. It's big for them, but
they're more talented. They have a better quarterback than most of the rest of these NFC teams. Their defense is better.
I mean believers in them winning the Super Bowl, not even just beating the Packers. There's some real believers out there.
I would not be surprised if they went to the Super Bowl and beat either the Ravens or the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I think they beat the Chiefs any day, honestly.
The Chiefs should be their worst matchup.
I'm not a believer in the Chiefs.
You don't like teams without offenses?
I am a believer in the refs, though. I believe the refs will greatly and vastly assist them. And no, I'm not over the Super Bowl last year. No.
Get the batteries.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean,
after watching the Super Bowl last year in Philadelphia and having that taken from that city,
the Chiefs have had the same number of games rigged for them as the Cowboys this year. The difference is the Chiefs have not lost a game because the refs cheated, whereas the Cowboys have lost 2 because the refs cheated. So the Cowboys are sort of on equal footing from that, although they've benefited heftily from it in the past. And I will note that the Cowboys' one loss to the Eagles this season was because the refs cheated them. So it's a hit or miss thing for them.
You're not wrong about that one. The Eagles have benefited from some seriously dubious reffing calls this year. I'll be the first to say that.
They were also punished by it, which may have started the downward spiral that they're on.
Yeah, they're operating with 2 broken wings right now and no talons. That's for sure. They have a lot of talent, but no talons at this point. They're at the point in time where Sirianni may honestly be let go of in the offseason if they lose to the Bucks. If they lose to the Bucks,
I don't know how you could possibly fire your coach who's only been there for 3 seasons after going 11-6 this year and losing a playoff.
I'm not saying they should do that. I'm saying what is realistic though with this current climate.
I've heard that hype, but it would just be the worst, one of the worst firings ever. Even the way they let go of Doug Peterson was highly questionable. They had Reed for so long, and he had one bad season, and they're like, "You're gone," and now they've just been on this stupid warpath ever since.
Everyone knows that Philadelphia is completely rabid, just a rabid city of rabid people, and I love it. But
our brother did remark that he roots for the Eagles to lose as soon as possible so that they don't burn the city to the ground, because the more games they win, the more likely it is that he just won't be safe because people are just going to rip down light posts and flip over cars.
Yeah. David, the one that actually lives in Philadelphia. Yeah. Did we talk about the I guess you did blitz through like the Bears, the Falcons, the Colts. What about the Bungles?
The Bungles I mentioned. The Bears are the only team we didn't actually really say anything about.
We did not talk about Tommy Cutlets either, but his
No,
ship
I
seems to have sailed.
no, I just skipped over the Giants and the command. Yeah, I mean the Giants have decided that Vinny Jones or whatever his name is their starting quarterback, and
He's not their starter. They haven't decided that. That's not true. That isn't true. They have what's his face? Tyrod
Tommy.
Taylor.
There's no way they start Tyrod Taylor in 2024.
They literally started him over Cutlets.
I know, and they won the game, which was a very bad takeaway. Well, no, I'm not talking about Chicken Man. I'm talking about their actual starter, Tommy Jones, Tommy
Oh
Lee,
yeah,
whatever
Dougie
his name
Jones.
is. Yeah, Dougie,
Daniel Jones is his
Sonny
name,
Jim
to be
Jones.
clear. Dookie Jones, because he came from Duke. He is dog shit. Yeah, he needs to go.
He won't. Dable has said that when he gets healthy, they're going to start him.
Dable seems to be extremely fraudulent at this point in time. I don't.
Overperformed. They won a playoff game last year. Listen, the team to look out for in the future is the one we haven't discussed, which is the Bears. Because the
I
Bears,
still want to comment on the fact that the Giants did also let go of Wink Martindale, who is easily the most talented person on their coaching staff, specifically because he and Dable got in basically, I don't know if it was a shouting match, but they got in an argument, and they let go of the people that Martindale brought to the Giants, um, which is unfortunate for the Giants because I don't believe in Dable. Um, but
I don't
anyway,
know.
we'll
I don't know who Twinkle Winkle is. So
Wink Martindale was their defensive coordinator, and he's gone.
their
God,
defense
I
was atrocious.
God, I hope the Eagles pick him up. Their defense was one of the only like highlights of their team. What are you talking about? The
They
Giants?
lost. They lost multiple games by like 30 points or more. Their defense was just god awful.
One of the highlights of their team.
They lost a game 40-0.
How many points did they score in that 40-0 game?
0.
It's not all on the defense. That's my point.
He missed like 4 field goals.
Anyway, Saquon may be moving on from them. Sorry, I just wanted to get those two pieces out. Was Wink and Saquon. So on
Wink Daniels.
the Bears.
Oh my. They're
Is
the
that who you're
team.
going to talk about?
I'm excited for them. They've been slowly. They picked up some good players during the season. They
Mm-hmm.
let Justin Fields continue to play, and they're just going to throw him away at the end of the season, or like next year, I think, because they
Yeah,
have
because they'll
two.
probably get the LSU quarterback who won the Heisman or Michael Penis
Not Caleb Williams.
or Caleb Williams. Yeah, one of those three.
What about Drake May?
Or him as well. There's no shot they go with Drake May over those other three though. Not
No,
that Drake May is bad, but he's not what's his name? Daniels? Jaden Daniels? Yeah.
never even heard of that guy.
He won the Heisman at LSU.
Not familiar.
I'm sorry, I wasn't watching this year.
Listen,
Uh
they get 2 first-round picks. They're both really high pick. They get the first overall pick because comically, the Panthers, remember the worst team in the league and one of the worst ever, doesn't get a first-round pick next year because they traded it away so that they could get Bryce Young, who, as it turns out, isn't good at all.
One of the worst things about that team is that they traded away literally the best player in the NFL right now, Christian McCaffrey. Got rid of him and have just gone downhill ever since. We did not talk about the Vikings either, but they're
No,
not
I've
team.
mentioned them briefly.
Oh, okay.
Just that their season had promise, and then Justin Jefferson got injured, and then a few weeks later, Kirk Cousins got injured, and that ended it. I
Yeah.
mentioned Dobby the astronaut.
Oh yeah, that's right. Dobbs is there now. Sorry. Did you talk about the Colts?
Yeah, like at the same time as them. They were a team
Okay.
that was not supposed to be good, that overperformed and missed the playoffs by just a smidgen.
So what are some of your favorite artful memories if we could go back through this year, this NFL season so far?
The Cardinals pretending not to tank while just openly tanking. Um, Dan Campbell literally making bad decisions but winning games because his players just believe in him and they are pretty talented and he's a likable guy. The NFC South as a whole, definitely just bad art as usual. Just terrible teams, but one of them automatically gets to the playoffs.
That's the Bucks, right?
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
NFC South. Okay.
It must be noted that the Panthers did not lead a single minute in the fourth quarter all year, which has never happened before. They just never were winning a game at the end of the game.
How
They
many points did they score this year?
they scored 236 points.
Oh, that sounds high.
That is the league low. Actually, it's tied with the Patriots, but
Oh my God.
but the Patriots allowed like 60 fewer points.
That's
So
some like Iowa Hawkeyes shit right there.
it is always fun to look at the point differentials. So the Steelers are another just hilarious like team of clowns where their point differential is -20, but they went 10-7. So despite winning three more games than they lost, they just got blown out so many times that they came away with a negative differential. That usually the differential is like usually meaningless though because like for example the Raiders who were just a bad team like middle of the road never did anything ended up with a +1 differential just because of that one game where they just scored like 70 points against the Chargers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Brandon Staley, his tenure, which thankfully he was fired mid-year at the Chargers, was pretty artful. Like just refusing to give up control and admit that he was wrong repeatedly, just staring death in the face and then getting ousted after running the team into the ground.
Yeah, where's he? Where's he out of? Like, what's his past?
It's a good question. Brandon Staley. I know you said you needed to get going soon.
No. I'm okay actually.
Oh.
Oh. At some point, we will have to wrap this up within the next 20 minutes. Yeah.
He went to the University of Dayton.
Who did he coach under?
He was hired by the Chicago Bears as their outside linebackers coach in 2017. Then he was hired by Vic Fangio for the Broncos as the outside linebackers coach. He was always a defensive guy. He was hired as the LA Rams defensive coordinator, replacing Wade Phillips in 2020. They were number one that year as a defense. And then the next season, he got hired to replace Anthony Lynn as the Chargers coach. So basically, he was a linebackers coach for a few years. Before that, I mean, he was in college and was just a defensive coordinator and stuff at various places. Like none impressive. Like John Carroll. I'm not familiar with that team at all. The John Carroll Blue Streaks.
What the hell?
Just some Division III Ohio school. James Madison, he was defensive coordinator. So yeah, I'm sure he'll get a job again as a D coordinator or like a assistant D coordinator because he, by all accounts, should be a good D coordinator, but he's clearly one of those guys whose ego grew too big.
Staley?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, where do you want to move from here? Do you want to talk coaches or players or
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of like
coaching carousel stuff happening because there were a lot of coaches fired, which means the league next year will be very different. It's nice to see the league like change a lot in between years because it keeps the product from getting too stale. Like in terms of looking forward to next year, who knows what the Seahawks are going to do because they were already in the middle of a rebuild. They picked up tons of talent in the last 2 drafts, and so they have a lot of young guys like on both sides of the ball. And so it's unclear what they're supposed to be because Geno Smith doesn't really seem like the long-term solution, and Drew Lock, the backup, is
Dear God.
He's not the answer either. So
famous Drew Lock who battered the Eagles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They play in a very tough division because the 49ers and the Rams are definitely going to be competitive for several more seasons with the core teams that they have. So the Cardinals, I mean, are just terrible in that division, and it's unclear how they'll move forward because it's tough for them to get away from Kyler Murray, even though they signaled they want to pick up another quarterback.
Damn, I should have just had this up the whole time. I'm looking at stats right now. Team stats.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about who we think should be the league MVP. For me, it's like kind of obvious, but
league MVP?
Yeah, like who is the most valuable player in the league?
Right. Do you want to do rookie of the year as well? Like offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year?
Sure. I mean, I think offensive rookie of the year just has to be Stroud.
Yeah. Like, unfortunately, like without him, it would be Puka Nacua, but yeah,
Stroud has had
been
more impact.
Overshadowed.
Yeah, I mean, Puka Nacua has helped revitalize that offense, but Texans would just have gone 2-15 without having Stroud. I don't know defensive rookies. Trey Hendrickson. I do not know who that is. Apparently, he had a heck of a year. I mean, to me, the MVP is just Christian McCaffrey. Like,
yes,
the dude's just a monster and produces like most of the offense for the 49ers, who have one of the best.
He is the reason why I made it to the fantasy championship this year, which RIP my team, thanks to CD Lamb, who scored 40 points in that game. But yeah, anyway, McCaffrey, disgusting performance this year. Ridiculous.
Yeah, but he's not allowed to get it because only quarterbacks win MVP, which basically means that it's between Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, and maybe Dak Prescott. Like, both of them have fewer yards thrown than Tagovailoa and Goff, but neither of them have a chance, especially since Tua just lost. And because Hill produces like the majority of their yards.
You don't think McCaffrey will win?
No.
Who's gonna win it then?
Josh Allen or Brock Purdy?
Purdy's not winning. Purdy's not winning.
Sounds like we know who it'll be then.
Purdy.
Josh Allen. Rattling off 5 of 6, playing a lot of hero ball. He runs for more touchdowns than Purdy does. I don't know.
Passing.
Oh wait, I forgot about Lamar. It'll probably just be Lamar Jackson.
Lamar is definitely higher up than. I would imagine.
I just forgot about him.
Like if you look at his rushing stats as well as his passing stats, it's insane.
It's the two together that really make him
good
singular.
God. Baltimore for the whole season, their rushing yards per attempt is 4.9. Rushing yards per game, they are the league leader in 156.5.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson was number 22 this season just in rushing yards.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
5 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, he had more rushing yards than Gus Edwards.
their running back.
They are a lot lower for passing yards per game, but when you combine them together, that's just like too strong of a weapon, of a powerful weapon.
He outrushed Austin Eckler. Oh my goodness.
I also kind of want to talk about, I kind of want to discuss like where we see the league going, as well as like on the whole, what this season has been like. Because I think like this year especially is like a capstone in the direction that we've been seeing the league going in the last like 5 to 6 years in a lot of ways. Like obviously the league has like waves of either people figuring out like a new strategy or innovating something either offensively or defensively, right? So like one year defenses will be like really high up, right? I think this year especially was pretty like defenses I think were dictating games more than offenses is what I'm trying to say. They had more of an influence on the outcome of games.
It was true last year and the year before. I mean,
Yeah.
2 years ago doesn't count as it. Like, I think those stats should be thrown away. But I agree with you. I think that's the trend the league has taken.
You like I saw it in the first like 3 to 4 weeks of the season, like and personally like I like it. Like I love defensive battles. Shootouts are also fun, but it's kind of just like I don't know. It's kind of like watching a schlocky action movie in a certain way. It's like, oh, great, you just a 70-yard bomb touchdown, like whatever. You get a little too like caught up in it, and it doesn't mean as much when it happens every play. Is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, in a way. Like, I think the soul of football is just throwing like long bombs down into double coverage for a like Joe Flacco is the embodiment of the soul of an era of football that probably died with his second touchdown interception, but I mean Josh Allen is still doing it, just hucking the ball and hoping that it'll work. But I mean, if that's the soul of football, the heart of football is something like Belichick's 13-10 or whatever that score was, that win over the Rams in the Super Bowl, where he literally changed the entire defense in a 2-week span from what was it, a 4-3 to a 6-1, and just literally read Sean McVay's playbook and then outcoached him in a way that I've never seen happen, where he just checkmated a team before they got to the field. Like
Yeah.
Sean McVay was just so outclassed by an individual that saw 5 moves down the road. And that to me is like the heart of a great football team and a great football coach.
And also that's the heart of like watching football. Like I think there is a lot of misunderstandings, I guess you could say, that people have about football. Obviously, people watch football for different reasons, right? You could get the people who their entire identity is centered around their football team, which is dangerous because then that results in you either just consuming mass quantities of alcohol and screeching at the sky and then putting holes in a wall, or just you like trying to shrug off a loss and being like really upset about it and copium happening.
Copious copium.
Yeah, so like obviously rooting for a team is fun, right? That's like part of why it's enjoyable, but for me personally, the thing that I enjoy more is from a tactical and strategic standpoint, and that, like I said, the marriage between that as well as these freak athletes being able to overcome or break out of coaching decisions or implement those coaching decisions. That's what I like appreciate so much is the live action chess match that's happening, the live action game that's taking place before your eyes, and kind of like continually falling into the mindset of no, these guys are like literally out there physically doing it, and it's a marvel. It truly is a marvel, and if you can capture that and kind of bottle it, and then like just tap into it, which is continually harder and harder to do just because of all the ads and the bullshittery, like we've said. I'm just trying to like make a case for why people like do really like the NFL. I know NFL ratings are really down as well, with all the political and statements and stuff that they've made and whatever. But at the end of the day, it is still football. Yeah.
Sorry, somehow got muted. I think that sums it up well. Ultimately, for me, the something that clouds really well coached or like a well played game is obvious. Like you just see it happen. You can see the tempo change. You can see a team rally around one or a series of performers who are just executing on a really high level. But the rarity of like that Patriots Super Bowl win is something that you don't see often, and you definitely I see the same thing in a lot of like film and media where you're being told something different than what you're seeing because the announcers, what they're talking about, like they're just these idiots who sit there and talk about the football game, have no idea what they're saying, and they're confused and they don't accurately tell the audience what's going on. And so if you just listen to what they're telling you, it's almost as if what you hear and what you see are different things.
Now here's a guy.
That's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Chris Collinsworth, yeah. But ultimately, like what they were saying during that game was just like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. It's like, no, you could be talking about the way in which Bill Belichick is doing something that few coaches are able to ever successfully do.
Yeah.
It to me that is like just watching a 20-minute recap of the game with no, it's just the tape. Like you're not watching any comment, like you're not listening to these idiots talk. Is like thinking about watching a movie where what you were shown is the lie and you have to pick through it to figure out what you are actually being told. Like what is going on there that's deeper.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess like one of the points of this episode is that like you and I still enjoy watching sports, obviously. But I guess we're trying to bring light to the fact that it's also, you know, it sounds cliche, but it's how you are watching it and what you're getting out of it. I mean, also it is fun to watch with other people, right? That's part of the appeal as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously we get different things out of watching it, but like I also just don't watch as many sports. I'm more interested analytically in them, and I don't even have an interest in like coaching or playing video games about them. There's just something about the result and how the execution was put into place to get that result that interests me, as opposed to the like physical act of earning a win, like the toughness of linemen in trenches or quarterbacks throwing the ball or something.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't explicitly say this, but I kind of was talking about this idea as well. There is something about football in particular that is very battlefield-esque, where like other sports coaches try to motivate their teams with this mentality, but football lends itself more to like, okay, well, this is our like regiment of soldiers going out onto the field, and they're going to gain yards and they're going to gain territory and they're going to impose their will on you, right? Because football is very much about a game of inches, right? It is very much about punching someone in the mouth and physically dominating them. Um, so anyway, what I'm saying is that like that's another thing that I find fascinating about football is the coaches that are involved in the process that are basically like these brigadier generals, if you will, who are just calling the shots. And the other crazy thing about it is that some of them are like up in the booth, so they're getting this like crazy bird's eye view of like up there on a hill, like overlooking the battlefield and like maneuvering troops in this way. Like I just find that so fascinating, that it is like a wartime, like, and it is like this battle mentality that they go into this game with, right? And oftentimes it does help with envisioning and winning and bringing yourself closer to that victory as well. But that's something that, like, I mean, obviously, like I played sports my entire life, so but that's something that I can identify with, and also just kind of takes me back into that headspace of appreciation, tactically as well as like emotionally. I just find that aspect so satisfying with sports, because at the end of the day, war is not good, right?
All right,
But
let's not
like,
get ahead of ourselves here.
sorry, I forgot about the Raytheon sponsorship. Yeah,
Yeah, we don't.
my
We
my
gotta.
bad. Lockheed Martin is pulling the plug as we speak. Um,
We're
but
sponsored
what?
by SAMSs, ICMBs, or intercontinental ICBMs. Sorry.
Ballistic missiles,
Mm-hmm.
intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what I'm saying is that, like, I just find it really fascinating that it's a part of like the human like drive and human spirit of just like fighting, right? But it's within the context of sports, and that's something that sports provide for us, is that like weird manic energy that we as human beings have, and it provides a canvas for people to actually do something with that energy.
Yeah, in this case, you know, Aaron Rodgers and his healing crystals. Like just being a celebrity because of how well you throw the ball, and then just turning into a maniac. He just
Yeah, well, I think this is a good stopping point. I don't want to go on too long, but we'll continue just bringing light to things that may otherwise not appear as art, but that we also see as quite artful in hilarious ways.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the presidents.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. That's going to be fun. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you on the next one.